Hey guys, welcome back. This one's going to be a proper deep dive. Duncan and Wax have been exploring some really interesting and honestly quite serious theories about the Jay Slater case, especially around the possibility of drug dealing, bank accounts being used to handle payments, and even deeper financial stuff like money laundering, smurfing, and internal debt. Today we want to walk through all of that, but also zoom out to show how these financial systems work and how they can escalate fast without anyone realizing. We'll explore what money laundering actually is and how it works, what smurfing means and how it shows up in drug-related setups, how UK banks flag suspicious payment patterns, what SARs, suspicious activity reports, are, and how they can lead to an account freeze. And we'll go through a realistic speculative scenario that could explain what might have gone wrong financially if Jay was in that kind of situation. Let's start with the basics. Money laundering is when someone takes money that's been earned illegally, usually through drug sales, fraud, or theft, and tries to move it around in ways that make it look legitimate, like it's just normal business income or everyday spending. The aim is to hide where the money really came from. And in practice, it often involves layering, breaking the money into pieces, mixing it with clean cash, and pushing it through bank accounts, mobile apps, shell companies, even crypto. The UK has strict anti-money laundering laws. Banks are legally obligated to monitor for anything that looks suspicious and to act on it quickly. Now, smurfing. This is one of the key techniques used in money laundering. It's when someone breaks a large amount of illegal money into lots of smaller pieces, small enough that they fly under the radar. These are usually made as multiple low-value bank transfers, deposits, or top-ups, often through different accounts or people. Imagine someone receiving £20 from one person, £25 from another, £45 from someone else, all spaced out, coming from different phones, names, or apps, often sent at night, in bursts over the weekend. You wouldn't notice one transaction, but taken together, they might be laundering thousands. If Jay's account was being used to collect payments like this, even unintentionally, that's what it would look like to the bank. A textbook smurfing operation? Now, here's why even small payments from random people can be a big deal. UK banks, including Santander, don't just look at how much money you're receiving. They look at how it's coming in. Their anti-money laundering systems scan for unusual payment patterns, transfers from unfamiliar names or accounts, payments received at odd hours, especially early morning between 1 and 5 a.m., and sudden bursts of traffic that don't fit your past usage. Even 10 or 15 20-pound payments over a weekend can trip an alert if it doesn't match what the account usually sees. That's because it suggests money is being structured deliberately to avoid suspicion, which is exactly what smurfing does. More specifically, SARs can be triggered not just by volume, but by the origin of the funds and their pattern. For example, if you suddenly start receiving money from people you've never had financial contact with, especially if the references on the payments are vague or inconsistent, that raises a red flag. If your incoming payments are all below common monitoring thresholds, but clustered together tightly over a short window, that resembles known laundering behaviors. Additionally, banks will flag discrepancies between your previous banking profile and your current one. So if you've previously used your account for wages and a few direct debits, and then suddenly it becomes a hub for third-party payments, that's going to prompt scrutiny. It's not about proving guilt right away. It's about identifying risk that needs a closer look. When those red flags pile up, the bank will often file a suspicious activity report, or SAR, with the National Crime Agency, the NCA. The account holder is never told a SAR has been filed. There's no message, no warning. Not even bank staff are allowed to hint at it. SARs are legally protected and confidential, and breaching that secrecy is a criminal offense. Once filed, the NCA has 7 working days to decide whether they want to intervene, and if they say nothing, a 31-day moratorium period begins. During that time, the bank can choose to freeze the account. Now, what does that freeze actually look like? A frozen account isn't obvious at first. The balance still shows. Incoming payments might continue to land, but the account owner can't do anything with the funds. If they try to withdraw cash or transfer it out, they'll hit error messages. but not ones that mention SARs or financial crime. So it's entirely possible Jay had no idea what was going on, only that his money was stuck and he couldn't access it at a critical moment. And remember, SRs and freezes don't require proof of a crime. All it takes is reasonable suspicion that the funds might be criminal in origin. So let's walk through a speculative scenario. Let's say Jay and Lucy were dealing drugs, not just casually at night, but actively through the day, too. Daytime dealing often involves bigger orders, especially at festivals where people are more willing to buy in advance rather than scramble later. Groups plan ahead, pool their money, and try to sort everything early to avoid last-minute stress or shortages. It's about convenience and control. Picture a group of 8 friends, each wanting to be sorted with 2 pills and half a gram of Coke per night. They're not just buying for one evening, they want to get sorted for all 3 nights of the festival. Now, if they're each paying around £255, you're looking at a combined payment of over £2,000 just from that one group. It might come in as one lump sum or maybe split into 2 or 3 payments across different accounts or devices. And if, as some people believe, Jay and Lucy were at the festival specifically to sell, this kind of setup isn't far-fetched at all. We're talking about a festival attended by thousands of people, a perfect environment for low-key, high-volume sales. In that kind of setting, a few organized groups making pre-arranged purchases could easily move serious money. And it wouldn't take much more than 2 or 3 of these large group orders to push Jay's account balance well into the danger zone, especially when combined with all the smaller, sporadic payments coming in from individuals topping up late at night. That's just one group. If they had 2 or 3 more groups like that, Jay's account could easily have taken in £4,000 to £6,000 in a single day. Now add in nighttime micropayments. £20 here, £35 there, as people top up during the festival. By Sunday, the account balance could be £7,000, £8,000, maybe even more, if the SAR had already been filed and the funds were still sitting in the account. That kind of pattern and amount would almost certainly trigger a freeze. So why would anyone let it get that far? Well, if they were selling on the side or upselling, Jay and Lucy could have naively believed that using a bank account was the safest way to keep the money secure. After all, traditional thinking tells us that the safest place to store your money is in a bank, especially in a tourist destination like Tenerife, where stories of theft from apartments and even supposedly secure hotel safes are not uncommon. It might have seemed logical. If you're collecting large amounts of cash over several days and you know that you need to access that money come Sunday to pay people off, you probably want it somewhere you believe can't be touched, not under a mattress or behind a wardrobe. From their perspective, putting the funds into Jay's account may have felt like a safe bet. They might have thought it would protect them from being physically robbed or having the stash go missing. What they likely didn't realize is that while a bank may protect you from opportunistic theft, it doesn't protect you from the digital red flags it automatically raises when that money starts moving in unusual patterns. And by the time they realized the account had been frozen, it was too late to fix it. As Duncan said, and he's right, proper operations don't want all their money going into one account. It's too obvious, too risky. The smarter thing would be to spread payments across multiple accounts or keep it cash-based to avoid detection. But that's not always possible. Clean accounts are hard to come by. Because of Know Your Customer laws, every bank account in the UK must be linked to a verified identity, with documents, facial recognition, and address verification. If Jay had the only clean working account among the group, they may have leaned on him to collect the payments, even if he didn't fully understand the danger. Now let's add another layer to this. What if Jay and Lucy weren't just collecting for someone else, but actually taking a cut on top? Picture them being told by their supplier to sell pills at £15 each, a fair but street-level price. But instead of sticking to that, they decide to push them out at £25 a pill, capitalizing on the festival setting where people are more desperate and willing to pay more without hesitation. That's a £10 markup per pill. Multiply that by 100 pills, and you're looking at £1,000 in pure profit just for Jay and Lucy. From their point of view, they're not doing anything criminally wrong, just making a bit extra for their efforts. So they run the numbers. If the total amount they were expected to deliver to their supplier was £10,000, and they've brought in £12,000, They assume they'll simply hand over what they owe and pocket the rest. That's how they justify it to themselves. Maybe they even had plans to pull the money out on Monday morning, send the boss his cut, and be done with it. But Sunday comes and reality hits hard. The account is frozen, completely inaccessible. No withdrawals, no transfers, and absolutely no explanation. All they see is a generic error when they try to move the money. And now everything changes. The supplier doesn't care about banking processes or technical glitches. All they see is that their 10 grand hasn't arrived. They're not concerned with SARs or freezes. They assume Jay is holding the money back, maybe trying to run off with it, maybe stalling for some other reason. Suspicion sets in, trust is gone, and tension escalates. This is where things turn. In these circles, when you owe money, you pay it, or the consequences escalate. Interest gets added fast. Not the kind of interest you get on savings accounts. This is street interest. Your debt can double in a day or two. And if people believe you're hiding money or playing games, the consequences are usually physical, not financial. So stepping back, no, we don't know that this happened. But smurfing exists. SARs exist. Banks freeze accounts without warning. Drug debts spiral quickly. And if Jay's account was holding that money and then got frozen, it may have looked like he was stealing from people who don't tolerate excuses. Whilst this is speculation, to us it fits with several parts of the story. The message sent to Debbie saying her son owed a lot of money, the widely discussed sale of drugs while in Tenerife, and the festival setting that provided the opportunity. Then there's that alleged Facebook Messenger exchange between Lucy and her mom, where Lucy admits she effed up. That line takes on more weight when you consider the context of money not reaching the people it was meant to. And if we assume the Masca Airbnb was the rural stash house, a safe, low-traffic location away from the chaos, it's plausible that's where the drugs were dropped off initially and where final settlement was expected to happen. A freeze in Jay's bank account might have made that impossible. And while it's not common to hear reports of this happening over debts of this scale, it's actually not unusual in certain criminal environments for rural or remote locations, places like Masca, to be used as sites for holding people. In some cases, it's not just about threats or warnings, but physical detention intended to pressure the debtor or those around them into paying up. If the people expecting the money believed Jay was stalling or lying, and if they had access to a secluded spot like that Airbnb in Masca, it's plausible that they'd use it to try and recover the debt through intimidation or forced settlement. This could also tie in with the early speculation and worry from Lucy, Debbie, and Rachel that Jay might have been kidnapped, a sentiment that, at the time, seemed to come from somewhere deeper than just general panic. If that's what they truly believed, it may have been based on more than just his disappearance. It may have been rooted in what they knew about the situation with the money. Could this also explain the widely held belief that Lucy and Brandon attended Jay's funeral but weren't welcome at the wake? If it had been Lucy's decision to formulate or push a scheme involving Jay's bank account, a plan that may have ultimately contributed to his demise, then her presence at the more intimate family-led part of the memorial might not have been acceptable. Tensions like that don't form from nowhere. They form when people feel betrayal, guilt, or even unspoken accountability. And if any of that theory holds weight, then the family distancing themselves would make a kind of painful, quiet sense. Obviously, a lot of this speculation hinges on a Facebook message that surfaced from someone claiming they bought drugs from Lucy and paid the money directly into Jay's bank account. When we drilled down into this, one of the most significant validations came from Little Miss Vodka on TikTok. She entered the bank sort code and account number shown in the screenshot into her own banking app to see what name the payee confirmation system would return. In the UK, when you set up a faster payment, the bank uses a system called confirmation of payee to confirm that the account name matches the sort code and account number. It's a fraud prevention measure used across nearly all major banks. In this case, the payee name returned was Jay Slater. Not James, not Jamie, not Jason, but Jay Slater. That's Jay's full legal name. And UK banks require exact matches to legal names for payee confirmation to work, particularly when you're sending money to an account for the first time. Given that, the chances of this being a fake message with a completely made-up bank account that just happens to resolve to Jay Slater are astronomically small. There are other people in the UK named Jay Slater, sure, but not many. And fewer still who would also happen to be connected to Lucy, Tenerife, and that specific moment in time. The odds that this was just a coincidence are incredibly slim, and the fact that someone unaffiliated could independently test and confirm it speaks volumes. Based on the data available and UK name frequency stats, we estimate there's around a 97% likelihood that the Jay Slater whose name was returned by the payee confirmation system is indeed the Jay Slater who went missing in Tenerife, Jay Slater. That high probability comes from a few factors. First, the name isn't a shortening like Jamie or Jason, it's his full legal name. Second, confirmation of payee systems are strict. They won't greenlight a transfer unless the provided name matches exactly what the receiving bank has on file. And third, the coincidence of someone independently testing random details and landing on the exact match to a missing person already tied to the story is so statistically rare that it adds serious weight to the credibility of the original Facebook message. And when we consider all the evidence together, the Facebook message, the bank confirmation, the exact match on Jay Slater, and the context of the drug-related financial flow, the pieces begin to align in a way that's hard to dismiss. These aren't isolated observations, they're interlocking parts of a larger pattern that point strongly toward the message being genuine and directly connected to the events that unfolded. So when you stack all that together, the financial context, the confirmation of bank details, the scale of the transfers, and the surrounding pressure, it paints a picture that doesn't need a vast conspiracy to explain it. Just a frozen account, the wrong assumptions, and pressure building in the worst possible moment. Before we finish, we want to quickly address the role of cryptocurrency in money laundering. It's often talked about like a magic bullet, the ultimate way to move money anonymously and avoid detection. And to some degree that's true. Cryptocurrency does offer unique advantages when it comes to bypassing traditional banking oversight. It's borderless, fast, and harder to trace if you know what you're doing. But it has serious shortcomings. Firstly, for the past couple of years, increasingly strict regulations have been introduced at the point where regular currency, fiat, is exchanged into crypto. These regulations are enforced at the exchange level. Places like Binance, Coinbase, or even smaller P2P platforms. And the same kind of know your customer checks you go through to open a bank account now apply here. ID, address verification, flagged name lists, all of it. So the idea that someone could simply throw their cash into Bitcoin and vanish isn't quite as realistic as it once was. More than that, once a transaction hits the blockchain, it's publicly visible. Every transfer is time-stamped, recorded, and, with enough forensic analysis, linkable. So yes, crypto plays a role in modern laundering, but it's far from risk-free. In fact, for short-term, high-volume transactions like drug dealing at a festival, traditional methods like faster payments and bank accounts often feel safer and easier, especially for people who underestimate the back-end monitoring systems in place. And due to the technical complications of setting up wallets, managing QR addresses, and the learning curve for securely sending and receiving digital currencies, it wouldn't be suited to fast-paced, spontaneous payments for drugs in a busy festival environment like NRG. Transfers can be delayed, mistakes can be irreversible, and if the buyer isn't already set up with a wallet, the entire deal falls through. Serious money laundering via cryptocurrency does exist, but it usually relies on more advanced techniques. These often include moving funds through a series of offline, unhosted wallets that aren't linked to any verified ID. This is done to break the chain of traceability and obscure the source and destination of the funds. Some will even convert mainstream crypto like Bitcoin into privacy-focused coins, like Monero, which are specifically designed to conceal transaction history through built-in encryption. While these tools are powerful, they're also complex to use and not something your average street-level dealer is handling on the fly. Which brings us right back to Jay. If crypto was off the table due to practical or technical limitations, and if cash was risky due to theft or loss, then it makes even more sense why Jay's bank account might have ended up being used and eventually flagged. As we said throughout, much of this is speculative. But when taken together, These signals, the banking patterns, the timing, the alleged debts, and the behaviors of those involved, form a picture that deserves further scrutiny. Whether it was a case of naivety, opportunism, or something more organized, what happened to Jay may have begun as a financial problem that quickly spiraled out of control under the weight of mistrust and fear. Thanks for watching. As always, we love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Stay sharp, stay questioning.